Welcome to Workplace Psychology with Dr. Martha Grajdek. I'm Dr. Martha Grajdek. This podcast examines a wide variety of work-related issues through the lens of industrial and organizational psychology. And while many of the topics discussed here may be seen as intended for white-collar employees and their employers, in reality, the ideas presented here are applicable across organizations and industries. Additionally, many of the topics discussed here may be applicable outside of the workplace. I encourage you to examine what's presented here, apply what makes sense to you, and simply discard the rest. Most teams don't have a performance problem. They have an accountability design problem. When it comes to teamwork or group work, most people can recall a time when their effort seemed to outweigh the efforts of other people, or maybe one other person on the team. That alone can make for an unpleasant experience. But when repeated over time, it can turn into more than just an unpleasant event. When it comes to teamwork or group work, social loafing can be part of an ongoing issue in some organizations. And while it's easy to assume that social loafing is strictly a character problem, in reality, it may very well be more of an accountability design issue instead. Social loafing can be described as a diffusion of responsibility, not getting done what one should do within a group or within a team, perhaps assuming that someone else will take care of it, whatever the it may be. This may happen for a variety of reasons, and character flaws are only a part of the possibility of why social loafing happens. As indicated at the beginning of this episode, individual performance may be very much tied to the design of accountability within that group, within that department, within that organization. What are some reasons why social loafing may happen within a group or a department? One common one is unclear ownership. When individuals do not know with certainty what they are responsible for, it's easy for the task or responsibility to go unfinished, not completed, undone. And it goes beyond just the attitude of, I don't know if this is my responsibility, so I won't care enough to do it. It may also include the kind of thinking where a person may not want to step onto someone else's toes, so they avoid the responsibility or the task in question. Assumptions are being made when responsibility or ownership are unclear. Another reason why social loafing may happen are weak consequences, or perhaps non-existent consequences. When a team member fails to pull their weight, fails to complete their tasks, and there are no consequences or weak consequences as a result, there is no real motivator or reason for the behavior to change. This is simple psychology. Another common reason for social loafing is poor visibility of contributions. At the end of the day, most people like to have their efforts acknowledged or recognized in some way, some fashion. It doesn't have to be anything big or elaborate, but it's important that one's work, one's efforts are recognized for what they are and correctly attributed to the person who did the work. When that does not exist within a group or a department or an organization, it may very well be the reason why people choose not to complete the tasks or the work that they should be when they are part of a team or a group. This is not without consequence. Whatever the reason for social loafing, it has consequences for the team, for the department, for the organization, and oftentimes for individuals. Sometimes it's the individual in question who is associated with the loafing behavior. Other times are other individual employees who are part of that experience, who are part of that environment, part of the group, the department. In other words, social loafing comes at a price. It does not go unnoticed, and it definitely has consequences. For one, there may be resentment, collective resentment amongst teams, individual resentment amongst individuals. Resentment can grow and it can get ugly. Another thing that can happen is increased stress and burnout for high achievers, especially those individuals who seem to pick up the slack when others don't do their work. When this happens on an ongoing basis over time, that can be quite difficult to deal with. And of course, the quality of the group's output or the department's output is likely to change. It is likely to drift or decrease. Knowing that social loafing is not good for anybody, what can be done to prevent it? As I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, a proper design for accountability is the answer. The first thing to consider is the clarity of roles. Every individual within an organization should know what their role is. What is their role within that organization? What is their role within the department or a group? And what is the role for any particular project? As we can see, a person can have multiple roles, and it's critical that they understand what their role is in every situation, every instance. An organization absolutely must define directly responsible individuals at multiple levels. That includes a project, that includes a department, that includes management and leadership. It's not enough to be clear on individuals' roles. It's also important to make it clear who is directly responsible for things. That means that while individuals have clear roles, some among them will also be directly responsible for certain things. And that may even include everyone involved. It's not uncommon that every single individual will be directly responsible for something. Visible work boards and completion criteria are a must when it comes to designing the kind of accountability environment that actually works. Make it clear who is responsible for what and make it visible to others, but also make completion criteria clear and easy to understand. How will a person know that they properly completed a task or a project? This should never be vague. Focus on small, frequent deliverables. Rather than simply telling individuals to deliver a certain amount of output within the next 30 days or perhaps even longer. Focus on smaller deliverables more frequently. Now, this is very different from micromanagement. This is simply creating the kind of system that promotes accountability and ongoing, regular forward movement in terms of achieving a goal or completing a project. When we break down bigger tasks into smaller chunks and require that people complete them in a way that is visible to others, in essence, creating a sense of accountability, that eliminates the opportunity for individuals to disappear for long periods of time and others not knowing whether or not they are actually working on whatever their overall deliverable is. So smaller deliverables and more frequent check-ins. Promote peer-to-peer check-in. Promote conversation amongst team members. Check-ins should not only exist between an individual and their manager, but rather between individuals within a group or a team. Not only will this create open communications, a sense of accountability, but also it will create the kind of environment where support and ideas will be more freely exchanged between team members. And lastly, make sure that before a team takes up a project, they have a clear understanding of what to do if criteria are not being met, if deliverables are not being delivered, whether it's by themselves or by other team members. What are the team's options, both as a whole and individually? Where does an individual turn to when potential issues are on the horizon or if issues already exist? It is by designing the kind of accountability environment and accountability structure that social loafing can be greatly decreased and potentially even eliminated. Leaders have an important responsibility when it comes to addressing and preventing social loafing. It's important to address any behavior issues or performance issues as quickly as possible. When you do that, make sure that you are clear about your expectations. This is no time to be vague. Performance may be suffering or substandard due to lack of clarity. When addressing issues, this is the time to rework the timeline or highlight the timeline, whatever the case may be, so that the person can get back on track. And remember to ask whether the person needs support or resources or tools. Don't make assumptions about why a person may not be putting in the work that is expected of them. They may lack support or resources. They may lack clarity. So always ask and deliver whatever it is that the individual needs. As a manager, as someone in charge, it is your responsibility to set them up for success. As this episode comes to an end, let's review what was discussed. Social loafing is a real thing, and although we may be tempted to think that it is largely due to character flaws, in reality, chances are that social loafing is more of a problem associated with accountability design problems than any individual characteristic issues. Social loafing may include diffusing responsibility or assuming that others will pick up the slack. In reality, it often is associated with things like unclear ownership or lack of accountability or consequences. It can lead to resentment, further confusion, and a drop in quality of a team's output. And for those who tend to pick up the slack, increased stress and burnout may be inevitable. It's important to design the kind of environment, the kind of structure that encourages and supports accountability. Clear roles and ownerships are critical, as are visible work boards and completion criteria. Smaller, more frequent deliverables can prevent people from hiding and can encourage work completion and forward movement or advancement for the team as a whole. Peer-to-peer check-in can offer open communications, peer support, and greater accountability within a team. And of course, it's important to let individuals know where they can turn or what they can do if there is social loafing or even signs of social loafing happening within their team, their department, or particular project. As the week unfolds, I invite you to consider teamwork or group work as it exists in your workplace and in your environment. Some of you may have more experience with it than others. However, regardless of how much teamwork or group work you engage in on a regular basis, I encourage you to take what you've learned from this episode and apply it as a means of improving the experience of not only yourself, but those around you. If teamwork or group work has historically been unsuccessful or frustrating for you, this may be a good opportunity to open a conversation with those in management about designing the kind of environment that focuses on accountability. The path to success can start with one conversation. For those of you who experience this podcast in an audio-only version, I encourage you to check out my YouTube channel, Stress Free with Dr. G, where you can find the video version of the podcast. Once you're there, I invite you to check out some of the other videos. They focus on stress management. Stress Free with Dr. G is available on YouTube, and the link for that is in the description below. Thank you for joining me today. Please subscribe to this podcast. I look forward to seeing you here again next time. Until then, I wish you joy and well-being.